All right, it's that time of year, NCAA tournament, March Madness. We're going to get into this bracket. We're going to talk about a couple regions, all four regions, who we like, who we don't like. We're going to talk about some upsets. We're going to talk about some sleeper teams. We're going to talk about the favorites, and then we're going to talk about who's this year's St. Peter's Cinderella story. So on this, we got my boy Mark. This is brought
Yes,
to you
sir.
by Double Up Sports. I'm gonna let Mark come in here. He can pick the first region, and let's get after it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to start in the South, right? Got the number one overall seed in Alabama, so you want to start there?
Yeah, for sure. So, let's start. Who do you like? Let's start with best matchup. What is the matchup in the South that you're most looking forward to?
Yeah, so I'll kind of blend this in with my upside pick, which is going to be NC State over Creighton. I think Creighton, if you look at a lot of the Ken Palm efficiency metrics, they grade out really well. Probably like a top 10 team and adjusted like just all encompassing efficiency metrics. But every year you see this with a team like NC State, where on Selection Sunday, nobody expected them to get in the tournament. Everybody's saying how Clemson has beat them twice this year by, no, they beat them three times, twice by 20, all
Mm-hmm.
three times by double digits. And you just tend to see this every year. I remember a couple years ago was UCLA, who snuck in the first four, end up playing Michigan State. Then they end up going on a Cinderella Final Four run. This was just a couple years ago when Baylor won it, the COVID year. And it's a trend that I pick up on. So I'll be interested because on paper, Creighton's a much better team and really good, but they do come out of a weaker Big East conference. NC State comes out of an ACC conference that everybody was down on this year, down on coming into the tournament. And so I'm just looking to fade kind of public sentiment. And yeah, I like NC State in that matchup.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people don't even. I think you alluded to it, but don't even think NC State should be in the tournament. So that would be something if they went on a little run. Um, the game that I'm most looking forward to is, and this is my upset. So is that, I'm sorry, is NC State your upset pick too then?
Yeah, both. I think that's a stylistically will be a good game, and then also it's my upset pick, so kind of two for one there.
Okay, yeah. So I'm also gonna run it back with a 2-for-1. The game I'm most looking forward to, and then my upset is my Furman boys over fluke ass Virginia. I just do not think they're a good team. They just lost a great player. I think the ACC was down this year, not battle tested. I think this Furman team is dangerous. I think they can get past Virginia. 13 over a 4 seed, not historically on my side, but I'm gonna take Furman there. And I don't know if they can make a Cinderella run because unfortunately they are in a bracket with Alabama, and I just spoiler alert, but I just do not see Alabama losing a game. But that's my upset pick and the game I'm really looking forward to. I think it'll be some it'll come down to the wire and Furman gets off a nice little buzzer beater to send the Fluke Cavaliers packing. So that's my upset and favorite game in the South. Who is your team to come out? Who's not losing a game in the South?
Yeah, like I think for me, like this sets up to be one of the best Elite Eight games of the year with a potential Bama versus Arizona.
Okay.
Like you said, I think look, they're the number one seed overall, and so everybody's gonna say Alabama's gonna make it. It's hard for me to see them losing before the Elite Eight. I would actually take Arizona to beat Alabama there in the Elite Eight game, and I do think this is
Wow.
going to be the region of chalk. I don't see a Cinderella story here. Like I said, I seen NC State pulling off a round one upset, but they're not going to beat a Baylor. So I see this being a one versus two.
Okay.
And I'm going to take Arizona. I like what I've seen
Oh,
from them. They play in the Pac-12. They play on late nights. People don't watch them on the East Coast as much. Um, Similar to the ACC, people are a little bit down on the Pac-12 this year. Really, just them and UCLA. USC also snuck in.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like Arizona to come out of this region, but I don't see Alabama losing any earlier than to Arizona in the Elite Eight.
Okay. Well, so we have the same Elite Eight matchup. You kind of skipped
Wow,
over.
one versus two. We're really going out on a limb here. But no,
Yeah,
I mean, I think if you just look at trends, like there's going to be a couple of regions where it's pretty chalky. So
of course. And I was going to touch on, you kind of skipped over Baylor pretty quickly, but obviously some people thought they were better than a 3 seed. Some people thought they were worse than a 3 seed. Obviously, they had a late season meltdown where they just could not win games. They got beat up by Iowa State twice. Just not a good look to end the season. People are a little off Baylor. I don't really see them beating in Arizona. So I am going with the chalk like you, Alabama, Arizona. However, I have Alabama advancing top 40 in defense, top 40 in offense. They are just a team that you do not want to play. So that's interesting. So you're going Arizona out of the South. I'm taking Alabama out of the South.
Just one thing on Baylor.
Yeah.
They have the guard play you look for in a tournament. You'll hear all these pundits on TV, these talking heads talk about senior guard play, veteran guard play. Baylor does have that. They just kind of miss everything else. So they don't play a ton of hard defense. They're just not a typical Scott Drew Baylor team. But yeah, I just wanted to say that they do have the guard play to make a deep run.
For sure. All right. Let's go down. I'm going to save the West for last just because that's so stacked. Let's go to the East. What is a game you are looking forward to?
Yeah, so in the East region here, I think Kentucky versus Providence is the one that I'm looking at. Providence does have a Kentucky transfer, Bryce Hopkins, who was an elite recruit for Kentucky, just didn't like how his time with the university went and the team, and transferred to Providence. Had one heck of a year. He's by far their best player. So just a little intriguing narrative there that the high profile transfer goes to the smaller school in Providence, who has made a couple runs in the tournament the last couple of years. So yeah, I like that matchup because I think if Kentucky can get past that one, I really think they're poised to make a deep run. So yeah, that's the game I'm looking forward to watching here in this region. A lot of good ones, but that's the one that caught my eye.
Yeah, so if our cameras were on, you would be able to see my face and see that I was laughing. We probably should have got together before this because that was my game for exactly the same reasons. But I will pick another game because there's a lot of good games in this region. I don't know if Duke is safe at the 5 seed. Oral Roberts, they are scrappy. Again, clearly I'm not high on the ACC this year, but regardless, I do think Oral Roberts can come in here and pull off a nice little 12-5 upset. That should be a great game. I do have, let's see. Yeah, I have Kentucky beating Duke, but honestly, I don't know if they're safe. I think Oral Roberts could honestly come in there and beat them. Who is your so I guess at the same time, again, that's probably my upset. I don't have Oral Roberts winning right now, and I made 2 brackets. I have them winning in one, losing in the other, so I'm not like full committed to that upset, but I do think it is a classic 12-5 where you could see where a powerhouse ACC team just gets bounced early and it's a huge upset and ruins a ton of brackets. How do you feel about Oral Roberts?
Yeah, so that is an interesting angle because I think like if this bracket would have came out 2.5, 3 weeks ago, like everybody would have been on the Oral Roberts upside here because they were such a trendy team. A lot of people who watch a lot of college basketball and watch some of these smaller schools on weeknights when some of us are watching NBA and other stuff, and the real college hoops junkies are locked in on Oral Roberts, and they have an older guard. I don't know his name off the top of my head. Hey, I'm nothing if I'm not honest, but he was the leading force when they upset Ohio State a couple years ago, and they went on a little run. Could have lost at the buzzer. Actually, could have went on a Elite Eight type run. So it's interesting because I just think Duke is playing so good right now. I don't see them losing this game. They're just too good defensively right now. Oral Roberts has been good all season. They're probably better than a 12 seed. Just the conference they come from, they couldn't get a higher seed here, and I just don't think they're going to catch Duke off guard. So that's not a type of spot where I like to pick an upset. But it would be interesting if I can look at some numbers. I know ESPN kind of post like the public percentage. If 80-90% of people are picking Duke in this game, given recent form, I would switch that. I just think a lot of people will actually pick this. The 5-12 stuff everybody always talks about.
Yeah, classic.
Oral Roberts is just a good team. They made a run a couple of years ago. I just think it's hard for these types of teams. Like once you shock everybody once, it's hard to make another run. You see it randomly with like a VCU with Shaka Smart, who made a couple different runs. But it's really hard for these smaller schools because you're just not going to catch people off guard after you already, upset a few teams in prior years.
You don't think Duke comes in here a little soft, underestimates them?
Like my thing is I'm going heavy ACC. I talked about a little bit
Oh,
your
really?
Virginia stuff. I'm going heavy ACC just because I think people are way too down on them. I don't get
That's
it.
fair.
Like I get that maybe in December and January these teams weren't playing too good. I look at a team like Miami. I look at a team like Duke, Virginia, like you said, Ben Vanderplas gets hurt in the other region, but I think the ACC is poised to have like similar to last year where everybody was down on them and they had like three teams in the Elite Eight.
Wow.
I could
Okay.
just see something similar. So.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Um, who is your Cinderella team to come out of the East? Not saying it will happen. Who could you see coming out?
Yeah, so I think in the first region we talked about in the South, like I don't see a world where Alabama or Arizona doesn't represent them in the Final Four, so I didn't have as many takes as terms of a long shot. I look at this 8-9 matchup though.
Yep.
Memphis
Yep.
and Florida Atlantic. It's hard to ignore what Memphis did down the stretch, especially against Houston in the final. They beat them twice in about a week.
Yep.
I get it. Marcus Sasser didn't play in the championship game in the tournament on Sunday, but
Mhm.
Memphis is athletic. They gave Gonzaga all they could handle last year in the second round. I think they were also out of the 8-9 game, and they had to play the one seed Gonzaga. I think they're a team that could give Purdue a lot of trouble. But Florida Atlantic, the other side of that game is really good too. So if there was one team where I would target, it's Memphis. You can get them at 16-1 to win the East,
Oh, wow.
which I just think is really good value. Obviously, they have to get past Purdue, but once they got past Purdue, man, they could run with anybody, I think. And um,
Yeah, so that's interesting that so is Memphis your team, or are you saying Memphis or FAU?
the winner of that game, but I'm picking Memphis to win it.
Okay.
So my official pick would be Memphis, but whoever wins that game is going to be really dangerous. Like
Okay,
Florida
yeah.
Atlantic's probably like a 6 seed, but again, they come from a weaker conference, so they don't have as many quad one wins, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that take. Just like a spoiler pick, I guess. I do have Memphis winning that, and then I do have Memphis beating Purdue. I have watched so many Purdue games, and this team just absolutely falls apart in the final 5 minutes of every single game.
They can't handle pressure.
I think they're the
They
most
can't.
overrated one seed. I don't even think they should be a one seed. I think Texas got screwed, but that's a whole other thing.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
so I just do not like Purdue at all. They'll win their first game, whatever. But yeah, Memphis or FAU, like you said, whoever comes out of that game has a very good shot. I will, since you like highlighted that game though, I will say a game that is interesting and that a team could make a run is honestly Michigan State Sparties. Tom
Definitely.
Izzo, Tom Izzo is obviously one of the game's best. Their defense is absolutely locked down. They do struggle scoring, obviously at times. That's just the nature of the Big Ten. But I definitely think Tom Izzo, you never want to count him out, and they could make a nice little run as a 7 seed. And again, if like Purdue loses, then there's not really a powerhouse team in this region. So look for Sparty to possibly come
And
out as
that's a
a
good point. I mean, Michigan State and USC, that's another game at the bottom half of the bracket. I like either. It's just hard for me to I really like USC. Like I'm kind of higher on the Pac-12 than some people, similar to my ACC take. But
Mhm.
the winner of that game, again, will give Marquette. I'm picking whoever wins that game to beat Marquette against the spread for sure. And betting markets, brackets,
Mhm.
I will have Marquette losing in that second round. Majority of my brackets for sure.
So the next question is who's your like favorites come out, but it sounds like from the sounds of it, we're not high on Purdue or Marquette, and that's the 1 and 2 seed. So who do you have coming out of this region?
Yeah, like I said, I'm high on this ACC, so I'll have Duke in my Elite Eight. And when the bracket first came out, they were kind of my team I circled to make a Final Four run that I didn't think others would be on as much. But I think you're a little bit more right with judging public sentiment because watching some of the ESPN shows and just YouTube stuff, people are picking Duke as like a trendy team. So I'm actually going to go with Kentucky. I know it's crazy. I know that they really let me down last year, but man, I like a lot of teams in this region. I've been a Kansas State fan. Noel and Keontae Johnson, what they've done. Again, I think they bring what they do translates to March really well in a one and done bracket where you're playing 2 games in 3 days and stuff like that. And then you got to
Mhm.
turn around the next weekend and do the same. But I like Kentucky a lot. I just think you see this a lot where, this happened to Virginia. Virginia was the first team ever to lose the 1 versus 16 matchup. And then the next year they were a really good team again, and nobody wanted to pick them because they just had that recent memory, that recency bias of them losing the previous year. And Virginia goes on to win the whole thing. I could just see something similar with Kentucky because we know they have the NBA talent.
Right.
If they can get hot from three, Jacob Toppin, obviously Oscar Tshiebwe, the National Player of the Year from last year, they get upset by St. Peter's. That sparked their Cinderella run. I just think you're going to see a locked-in Kentucky team. They lose early in the SEC tournament, a little bit banged up, but from what
Yep.
I've heard from Cal and some stuff, I'm just locked in on this Kentucky team. 12-1 right now to win this region.
Oh, that's
I will definitely be betting that.
yeah. So I was between Duke and Kentucky, but I am going with Kentucky. For a lot of the reasons you said, I think they're a great tournament team. Obviously, last year is not what you normally see from them, and that certainly will not happen again. As you said, recent memory, they're not going to let that happen again. So that's interesting. Both on Kentucky, who's a 6 seed, and then maybe you're on Duke, which is a 5 seed. So no 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed coming out of the East.
Yeah, and I will say though, like a lot of what I'm saying is also like it's half just bracket pool strategy and knowing kind of where other people are going to pick and getting leverage off that, blended with my takes of watching these teams play. I don't think
Sure.
Kentucky's like the best team, but
No, no, certainly.
relative to how often they're going to get picked to win this region, although again, this gets into the game theory stuff, so I'll hold that for maybe a different video later on. But I mean, Purdue and Marquette are probably the weakest 1 and 2 seeds. So this could be the region where everybody's picking Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State. So that's
Yeah,
interesting. I'll
yeah,
have to
and
think
then
about
and then
that.
watch Purdue and Marquette make
Yeah,
it.
I like this Memphis team. I like that. I like that Memphis team. So we'll see.
For sure. All right. We'll head up to the Midwest. What is the game you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah. So the Midwest, it's hard for me not to say Miami and Drake. But I
Okay.
also like that Indiana game. But Miami and Drake is the one I will go to because
Okay.
it's tough. Because like I kind of been saying, like the theme of this, I'm bigger on the ACC than a lot of people. I think Miami is much better than a 5 seed. Again, maybe they just didn't show it on the court this year consistently enough. But man, when you watch them play, the guard play, you talk about guard play and just potent scoring potential. But Drake it will be able to run with Miami and they'll be able to score with Miami. And if Miami has a bad shooting day from outside, Drake could easily pull this 12-5 upset. And I just think this is going to be a game that's played in the high 70s, low 80s. Like you're going to see, like, I think, an 82-76 type game. I will be picking Miami to win this game, but just from a pure basketball entertainment, this will be a fun one for me.
Okay, so that's your game that you're looking forward to, but not your upset. What's the upset?
Yeah, so I'll be taking the winner of the Mississippi State Pittsburgh playing game to beat Iowa State.
Wow. Wow.
So again, this is me just everybody's high in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah.
I'm fading the Big 12. And
All
we'll
right.
talk about that a little bit later with some of these other teams and other regions. But yeah, pretty much fading the Big 12 when it comes to Elite Eight and Final Four exposures in my bracket. So yeah, I'll be picking Mississippi State or Pittsburgh to advance there.
Okay. So the game I am really looking forward to is Texas A&M and Penn State. Well, actually, two Texas A&M, Penn State. I think that's going to be a good game. Penn State is just so feisty. They get down and then just storm back. However, Texas A&M pretty good. I think I read something. They had 13 SEC wins this year, which is pretty good. Obviously, they can score. I also like the Iowa Auburn game. Again, Big Ten SEC. I like those matchups. Defense versus offense. That should be a good one. However, my upset, as an Ohioan, let's take the Kent State Golden Flashes
Ooh,
over the Hoosiers.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The Big Ten, every year, they just get beat up all season long. Everyone beats up on each other. Then they get to the tournament, and then these good teams just don't do well, and they get to March, and then they just shit the bed. When is the last time a Big Ten team like made a huge run? I don't know. I just don't like the Hoosiers.
Yeah, like Shatini mentioned earlier, Michigan State's really the only one, right? That they made the Final Four. I think the year Virginia won it.
Yeah, what Michigan went to the Natty, but
They
that
lost.
talking
Yeah,
like
they
we're
got
talking
rolled
years
by
ago, like years ago.
Villanova. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, multiple years ago, and really it's the same couple teams. So yeah,
yeah,
no, I
right.
agree.
Yeah, so that's my upset. I mean, they just put up buckets. So That in Indiana, if
I do get
Jackson,
worried though, because again, it seems like a trendy upset, and Indiana does have legit NBA talent. So again, but I get
well,
what you're
so
saying for
well, that
sure.
was
Like
going
it
to
makes
be
sense.
my next point is obviously the NBA talent. I assume you're talking about Jackson. If he has a bad game, they don't win that game.
Yeah, but they also have Defino now. Is that how you pronounce his name? He
I'm
was
not
hurt
sure.
most of the year, but he's
Okay.
like the top guy in the draft. Like he'll be a lottery pick. Trace Jackson Davis is like a fourth year guy. He'll be like a fringe 25th.
Hmm.
But I'll pull up the roster here real quick because I think it's Chris Defino. I think is it. Yeah, Jalen Hood Shafino is the
Okay.
guard they have. So that's
Okay.
that's the name. But they have Race Thompson who's a forward. Like they have good players. But Kent State is really, you talk about a team that is not a 13 seed.
Oh, I know.
Um, I mean, them and Toledo are both good basketball teams. Like I thought both of them should have got in. Obviously, it'll never happen.
Right.
But I think if you just watch the games, like those are two tournament teams.
No, seriously, why not let two MAC teams in and get rid of one of these bad Big Ten teams? I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but for ratings and just the metrics they
And
use, I guess they just value the bigger conferences. But no, I mean, I agree.
of course.
Sure.
All right. Who is your Cinderella team that could potentially come out of the Midwest?
Yeah, so a team that I think could actually like win this region, not just make a Sweet 16 run or something. I don't see a ton that I love here just because I am big on Houston. I think that they bring a lot to the table with what you want in March, and they've been here and done that the last couple of years. But in terms of a team that could just sneak up and represent, it's not a deep sea, but it is Miami for me.
Okay.
Um, again, goes back to my theme, ACC. I'll be higher on the ACC than a lot of people. I'll probably come back to bite me, but yeah, I like this Miami team. Obviously, they made a run last year, lost to the champion Kansas in the Elite Eight. But yeah, I like Miami a good bit.
I gotcha. I'm definitely on your side with like I really don't see a Cinderella team coming out of this just because it has Houston and Texas, and I just think those teams are so dominant. I will say, and obviously this is not your typical Cinderella because they are a 3 seed. However, Xavier, they come out, they're a pretty good team, and I know they lost their last game, and a lot of people are down on them, but I think they were just tired. At like what 2 games in 3 days, whatever it was. They are very good. I've watched them all year. Cincinnati team. They are not. You don't want to play them. That's for sure. So, although it's not a Cinderella, team because they're a 3 seed, I could see them beating a Texas or a Houston,
Hmm.
to represent the Midwest. Who's your favorite to come out?
Yeah,
Who's your
Houston. I mean,
Houston?
Houston. You got Texas on the 2 line here. Um, good story. Obviously their coach, Chris Beard, earlier in the season had some away from the program issues that ended up with him getting fired.
Mhm.
And they still but coming into the season, Texas was a projected top 5 team, so they have the talent. Timmy Allen, Marcus Carr, they got the guys, but yeah, I'm picking Houston.
Okay, and it was interesting. I read something that Houston made their Elite Eight run without Sasser last year, right? That's his name, last name.
Yes, was he? I thought he played. I thought it was Mark, last name Mark, that was out last year, but I could be wrong. They
Oh,
could have
was
both
it?
been out.
Okay, well, either way, they are capable. That was just my point. Is one guy goes down, another steps up. They're still just such
Oh
a
yeah, no,
powerhouse.
they're yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go Texas. I just love Texas. I love the way they play. They're so capable of changing the way they play based on the matchup. I just think it's a perfect recipe for March. And I do have them playing Houston. I definitely don't see Houston losing before then. Maybe your Miami team beats them. But I definitely like Texas to come out of the Midwest and maybe a little national championship appearance. Um, all right. The best region, the West. Let's start with the team that you will switch it up. Who do you have coming out? Who's your favorite best team?
Yeah, so from a high level, if you just look at odds, the 1 seed line here with Kansas, they're 3.5 to 1 to win the West. For reference, Houston is about 1.5 to 1. So you bet 100, you
Oh
win
wow.
150. Alabama is just under 2 to 1, and Purdue is about 2 to 1. So the odds makers and betting markets will tell you that this is going to be the region that nobody has any idea what's going to happen. And when you start to look at the teams, it's easy to see why. I mean, you look at UCLA, you look at Kansas. I mean, just two blue blood programs. UCLA obviously made the Final Four a couple years ago. Lost to Carolina last year. We got them in the second round. But even like a TCU, I know Lampkin won't be playing. Look at a UConn team who started off
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga out on the West Coast that people have, for some reason, forgotten about this year. And then
Right.
I look at that 8-9 game, Arkansas and Illinois. Like, you talk about NBA talent.
Arkansas.
Arkansas has 2 to 3 guys
Yes.
that'll be top 15 picks.
I think
Obviously
you
Nick
were
Smith is the top guy. So
I think you're out of your mind if you're picking Illinois to beat Arkansas. That's just my take.
yeah, I am a little bit higher on Illinois than you, I would say, but I think this is the worst possible matchup for them. So yeah, I'll be picking Arkansas in this game, but I wouldn't be as shocked as you if Illinois won. But you don't like the Big Ten. That's similar to my ACC thing this year, where you just got to take stands with certain conferences.
Yeah.
Similar to like bowl season and stuff in college football, where
Right.
you
Right.
just got to take stands on conferences and not try to get every individual game correct, but if you hit on which conferences have a good showing in the tournament,
Exactly.
um, you'll do well.
Yeah,
So
very big on the SEC. I mean, I I could potentially have well, I don't have Arkansas obviously coming out of the West, but like that'd be awesome if they made a run. And then I have obviously Kentucky in the East, Alabama up in the South. So yeah, I'm obviously very high on the SEC this year.
I
Um,
say all of that so actually the interesting part about this is UCLA actually has worse odds. I guess it would be considered better odds from a betting perspective. They have worse odds. They're under 3 to 1 to win the West. Kansas is almost 4 to 1.
oh
So
wow.
betting markets and the odds makers would tell you that they favor UCLA.
Do you
I
think that's
really this is the
because
one that I don't know. Like, if you ask me today, I'll say this team, but by the time they tip off on Thursday, I could be totally different.
so do you
As of
think
today, I'd pick Gonzaga. As of today,
okay, yeah. So do you think Vegas isn't as high on Kansas as the other number one seeds because they have them losing early to somebody like Arkansas, or do you just see them losing in the Elite Eight to a UCLA or the Zags?
I just think they have by far the toughest road.
Just yeah, like their path, they
We
could lose
talk about
anywhere.
having to play Arkansas. I mean, again, talking about the NBA talent Arkansas has, like,
Yeah,
that's not a good draw in the second round. But
no,
they could still
especially
beat
for a one seed.
Arkansas, but they would still have they just have a hard road. Like, you look at
Right,
a
right,
team like Bama, um, I mean, really they don't have much to go up against,
right, right.
in my eyes until the Elite Eight. So
Fair. Okay, so I think I missed it, but was your Zags?
yeah, Gonzaga.
Okay. All right. I do have Kansas. I know UCLA is a little banged up. People have forgotten about Gonzaga, but I don't think it's unwarranted because they're just not as good as last year, right? They're just historically so dominant and they just haven't been. I really like Kansas. I know Kansas lost. Obviously, they just lost to Texas. They lost a couple late season games, but still very high on them. I think they can score at ease, and I think their guards will play well. So I do like the number one seed coming out of there. What's your favorite game, first round game in the West that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so I got a crazy take here, and again, I would never pick a 13 seed to go to the Final Four, but
Oh
if I'm
no,
picking a 13 seed to go to the Sweet 16, it would be Iona. It would be Rick Pitino.
Rick
I look at a
Pitino.
UConn team who really doesn't have the good guard play you look for. They have the size,
Yeah,
to beat you up and bruise you down low, but they don't have the guards. And Iona's going to pressure them, and they're going to full court press the whole game. And I just don't trust UConn's guards. Not to say they can't win, but if Iona can get past UConn, and you got the Rick Pitino versus the Hurley family, obviously head coach Dan Hurley there in UConn.
hmm
If they get past them, they get a second round matchup versus St. Mary's or VCU. And I just get one of the best tournament coaches of all time in Rick Pitino, and that's his path to the Sweet 16. That's kind of my Cinderella run. I don't know if they can beat a Kansas. They probably can't, just don't have the talent, but they can beat UConn, and they can certainly beat the winner of St. Mary's and VCU. Um,
for the
Yeah, I think that, but just from an entertainment standpoint, man, that is going to be a fun game. Fun game. I just can't wait for that one. So yeah,
fair
that's
enough.
by far my favorite matchup here. Arkansas, Illinois will be a really good one too. So,
So UConn, Iona, that's your favorite and your upset.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So my favorite and well, I guess not favorite because probably my favorite game is going to be Arkansas, Illinois, but my upset is I'm going with another 12 versus 5. I love these matchups. VCU over St. Mary's. I think VCU is really good and I think this is a 12-5 spot that the 12 hits. Um no
Definitely.
really rhyme or reason, just like the Rams. Um yeah,
Fair.
Arkansas, Illinois is going to be really good. So you're upset that yeah, I think that who's your Cinderella team to come out?
So like I said, I would never pick Iona to actually like win this
Right.
region. I just don't think
Yeah,
that
like
could
who's like your
really happen.
realistic team that
Yeah, so if I'm picking one that I actually would say has a shot,
Mhm.
it's gonna sound crazy, but I really think Boise State is a team that does a lot of stuff well. They play a Northwestern team that I'm not as impressed with. They're more of like just play hard. They don't really have the talent of a top 7 seed.
Uh-huh.
They did beat Purdue this year though, had a couple nice wins,
Yeah.
but yeah, I look at Boise State. I mean, they beat Texas A&M by 15 earlier this year. We saw what Texas A&M did down the stretch, second team in the SEC. They split with San Diego State, who obviously ended up winning the conference tournament.
Mhm.
Um, the problem with Boise State is that they haven't had good recent form. They've dropped 3 of their past 5 heading in, but
Yeah, it's not good.
the first 3.5 months of the season, they were one of the best teams in the country. 24-9 on the season. Just a team that, obviously UCLA in the second round would be a very tough matchup, but similar to Iona, if they could somehow pull off that crazy upset against UCLA, after that, like there's not a ton in the bottom half of this region that like is insurmountable. So
Yeah, and then maybe, like an Arkansas does beat Kansas and then they don't have to play Kansas and
well,
then
that would be like it's a boring pick. Arkansas would be my long shot, but like everybody's gonna say that because they have like 3 NBA players. But
well
in terms of like a fun, like off the wall pick,
sure.
I'd pick Boise State.
Yeah, I would obviously my like long shot is Arkansas, but I also like TCU. They can
Mhm.
ball. They certainly can ball. They coming out of such a good conference, a lot of scoring. So obviously they would have to play Gonzaga, which you don't love that, but if
You're
we're
not as high on Gonzaga, it doesn't sound like.
no, I mean I don't know. I need to watch more stuff on them in the next day or two to really feel them out. You made a good point though. Like West Coast, they always play these like 11 p.m. games, and people just aren't watching them.
Hmm.
At least from our region.
But people on the West Coast don't watch college hoops like that. They're out doing whatever, so they're not really locked in on college hoops.
Are
I
you
wouldn't
calling
imagine.
out fans on the West Coast right now?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
they
okay.
don't have any fan bases out there. Come on. But yeah, no, I mean, I really like Gonzaga. I know you're not as high on them, but
All right. Well, that was all four regions. We picked a kind of a sleeper team to come out of each region. We picked our favorite to come out of each region. We picked a good upset, and we also picked a game or two to highlight that should be exciting. Um, right just before we end, do you want to give like a little natty teaser? You want to keep that to yourself and protect the picks?
I don't. I'll let it rip.
All right, let
Um,
it rip.
yeah. So I think it's chalk. So that's why I don't care giving it out. I got Houston. Um,
Really?
I
Okay.
just I really like this team, and people are starting to talk themselves off of them because of the Sasser injury, because they got beat pretty bad by a good Memphis team.
Uh-huh.
And this one's in Houston. This Final Four is in Houston. I just think that's a good storyline. As of today, again, we're recording this on Monday.
Oh
A lot
yeah.
can change.
Yeah,
But
I
if I
mean,
was filling out one bracket, like a single entry type thing,
yeah.
I'd pick Houston. So
Houston versus
Zona. Have Arizona over Kentucky, and then I have Houston over Gonzaga in the Final Four
okay.
as of today.
Okay. All right. Mine is certainly chalk because I'm going a one seed and a two seed, but I don't know. I really like Alabama, and I really like Texas. Really like both these teams.
My problem with Bama is they rely so much on the three. Um,
Their
but
defense, though,
their defense is amazing. But I think a lot of that's as like they play against a bunch of SEC teams who aren't like I don't know as composed offensively. Like they're more I don't know. That's just kind of how I
no,
look at
that's
it.
that's. I mean, that's a well. So
Like I could see Alabama losing to West Virginia in the second round.
okay, well now we're talking crazy.
No, how is that talking crazy? It's a tournament. Anything can happen. West Virginia has one of the greatest coaches of all time in his last farewell tour.
Are they even going to
Possibly
get past
ugly.
Maryland?
Maybe not, but I'm just saying, like that's a type of team. I'm not predicting that.
Yeah, I got you.
Listen, Bama program has obviously had a lot of bad things that go way beyond sports this year.
Right, a lot of distractions.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well that's gonna do it. You heard it here first. Good luck in all your brackets. Hopefully, someone listening takes down the ESPN. What is that first place prize? Something ridiculous, life changing money.
It has to be a couple million, right? I
Yeah.
think something like that.
All
So.
right, that's a wrap. This was brought to you by Double Up Sports. Peace.